many of you in this room have ever been in a leadership role with young people? You've been a basketball, little league, or soccer coach. How many of you have been a teacher yourself or helped a teacher in a classroom on a field trip? How many of you have been a youth group leader at a church or a Boy Scout or Girl Scout leader? How many of you have been a parent or guardian to a child that wasn't your own? How many of you have hosted someone else's child for a family vacation and included them as your own? How many of you have been the open kitchen where a kid from the neighborhood could just show up for dinner and know they were welcome at the table? Mentorship comes in all forms. Now let's think about a time when you've been mentored. How many of you in this room had a coach or a teacher that you'll never forget? What was their name? What did they say to you? How many of you in this room had a boss that thought you were talented and trusted you with your first important assignment? How many of you were mentored by an adult that saw something in you, greatness, talent, giftedness, determination, that you didn't see in yourself and would never have seen it if it hadn't been brought to your attention? Now, if any of these things apply to you, either having been a mentor or received mentorship, raise your hand. Thank you. Look like all of us. So we can see that this idea of mentorship touches all of us. In about an hour and a half, a couple thousand students are going to descend on ShoWare Center. And to you, it might look like random or ordinary conversations as they approach your tables. But it may be a conversation that gives them a direction they've never thought about. The internship or job you have may be the one that starts a career. You may never know that what looked like a chance encounter led to an internship or a job that changed someone's life. About 4 weeks ago, I participated in a roundtable at Highline Community College. Highline College and Southside Chamber reached out to local business leaders and invited them to discuss how educators can teach skill sets that are meaningful to business and prepare students for maximum employment. I was struck by two things. First of all, we have an amazing Southside Chamber of Commerce. Annie McGrath and Samantha Lee, I am so proud of you and what you do to bring us together on a morning like this and unify us around some of the most important topics like jobs, mentorship, and preparing students for the business world. One of my favorite phrases is, this is not your grandparents' Chamber of Commerce. You are the most forward-thinking chamber I could imagine and are a unifying force for the South Sound. Annie and Samantha, we are grateful for you. And I was also struck by Highline College for their bravery and enthusiasm to bring business leaders in and say, tell us what we are missing or what we could teach better around to prepare students. This event feels like a continuation of that discussion. I am so proud that we have a chamber and educators like those found at Highline and all of you here in this room that are willing to have this conversation at such a high level. I want to close by saying that I hope every one of you has a chance to engage this morning on this topic of mentorship. I hope you will have time to introduce yourself to somebody at your table you don't know and share about a time you've been a mentor or received mentorship. I guarantee you it will be a rich conversation. And while it may look like we're setting up tables in ShoWare to talk to students about careers and jobs and internships, what we're really doing is preparing ourselves to change kids' lives. I hope this morning will be rich and rewarding for you as it will be for the kids that will soon be arriving. Be prepared to have amazing conversations with them and with each other. And with that, I would like to now introduce our council member from Kent, Zandria Michaud. Thank you. Thank you, Zandria.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our beautiful ShoWare Center. I'm so glad to see all of you here early this morning. I am Kent City Council Member Zandria Michaud, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the Pacific Northwest Education and Workforce Summit. I'm thrilled to celebrate our collective potential to develop a qualified and more innovative workforce, foster business and economic growth, and help build stronger communities. Our companies here in Kent make things that not only travel the world, but also fly into space. From the first lunar rovers developed here over 50 years ago at the Boeing Space Center, to the creation of next generation rockets at Blue Origin, the Kent Valley is home to these groundbreaking companies and so many others. These companies locate here because of our strong, specialized workforce that's eager to roll up their sleeves and tackle challenging manufacturing and technology roles. But the activity occurring here is not confined to the aero and outer space sectors. Our companies make the machines that manufacturers around the globe depend on to make their products. The world's supply chain passes through our valley. It's our region's long heritage in crafting industrial technologies that creates both future industries and new markets. New markets for American manufacturing and new jobs. We continually shine a light on the Kent Valley's exciting opportunities in advanced manufacturing, so people see the possibility for careers, not just jobs, but the careers within. The pathways for great careers are here, and we're fortunate to have willing partners to help bring students along. At no other time has technology had a greater impact on the manufacturing industry, and this will only continue. Our economy is ultimately stronger when companies depend not on you as cheap labor, but as indispensable specialized workforce, and that doesn't mean college or no college. There's opportunities in both pathways. As we learned during COVID, there are many modes of learning beyond the classroom, and I'm proud our community offers opportunities to spark a variety of interests. Career-connected organizations like a news pre-apprenticeship program, training and supportive services, are leading many to successful family wage careers, especially for women in construction and manufacturing. And the Aerospace Joint Apprenticeship Committee's program are creating the next generation of highly skilled manufacturing employees in our state. But also, beyond aerospace, AJAC also connects people to careers in automotive, healthcare, culinary, and IT industries. While we have amazing programs for kids to get them thinking about their futures beyond school, like First Washington Robotics, Blue Origin's Club for the Future, STEM festivals, and the like, I challenge all of us to think about how we bring those into daily life. Embedding the learnings from these opportunities into our curriculum needs to be our goal. That means mentor involvement, and it means bringing teachers along to learn about the amazing opportunities in our workplaces. Our employers are all here for it, and they're desperate for talent. I'd love for our kids not to miss out. We can ensure our workforce pipeline is full by regularly engaging educators and parents with local industry on an ongoing basis. Our staff are building the partnerships with industry. Our counterparts in neighboring cities are doing the same. Our employers need our students to have the skills to get started, but then grow from there into the next generation of industry leaders. Manufacturing requires more brains than ever. Technology advances have seen to that. We also need our local students ready to take these incredible roles. With a pipeline of talent, we can keep our successful employers here too. Both can happen if we have a skilled workforce ready to go. Thank you all so much for being here today and joining in the summit today. I hope that you will find it productive. On behalf of the City of Kent, I hope you're all inspired by today's summit, and thank you so much today for being here.
Thank you, Council Member, and thank you to Bob for really setting the tone for what we're here to do today. Good morning, everybody. My name is Annie McGrath, and I am the President and CEO at the Seattle Southside Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of our board, our ambassadors, and our staff, thank you all so much for taking the time to be here with us this morning. When we talk to businesses and we ask them about the challenges that they're facing, one of the top responses that we get in all of the cities that we serve is workforce. We hear from employers that there are just simply not enough qualified candidates for these skilled positions that are available throughout our region. We recognize that this is a complex challenge and that it's going to take all of us collaborating with partners in education and in business. The purpose of this event is to address this issue by bringing us all together, bringing the business community, education and career partners, and community leaders together to provide insight into the trends in education, best practices for employers, as well as the work that we need to do to inspire and prepare students, today's students, for future jobs. As we gather, we respectfully acknowledge that our event is taking place on occupied Coast Salish land and that the Seattle Southside Chamber operates on the homelands of the Duwamish people. We pay respect to Coast Salish elders past and present, and we extend that respect to their descendants and to all Indigenous people. This copyrighted webinar is presented by the Seattle Southside Chamber and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form without written consent of the Chamber. And we are hybrid this morning. So for those of you joining us on Zoom, hopefully still in your PJs at home, this is a webinar and not a meeting, which is why you are unable to unmute yourself or share video, but you can turn on the closed captions. Just click the CC button at the bottom of your screen and select Show Subtitles. As one of the top employers in our Southside communities, we are very excited to have Deja Hubbard, Manager of the Strategic Sourcing and Outreach for Alaska Airlines, and also one of our presenting sponsors today, here to say a few words. Please welcome to the stage, Deja.
Thank you, Annie. I'm excited to be here today to talk about workforce development and how it affects industry for all of us, but especially in Alaska. My full-time job is to work on pipeline development and work with students at all levels to make them aware of opportunities in aviation, as well as specific career paths that are available to them. Many students grow up not really thinking about aviation or not understanding that that's an opportunity for them. And there are many barriers that have been there all throughout the years. And Alaska, in the last 3 years specifically, has really put a big focus on making sure that we're breaking down those barriers and having opportunities for students. If you watch the news at all, you know that there is a pilot shortage. Everyone's aware of that, but there's also other shortages in our industry, including maintenance technicians, IT. The list really truly goes on and on. And so it's our job really to bring opportunities to students, to be able to provide mentorship, to be able to provide stipends. Financial barriers are huge. Becoming a pilot would be about $80,000 to $100,000, and that figure is insurmountable for many students when they first hear it. But we really do work hard to provide opportunities for every student. So when we're looking at the industry as a whole, we know that students need several things. They need to know about opportunities, but they also need to be able to have a pathway to get there. And so we started, well, actually in 2016, we started our very first pipeline program specifically for pilots. And we went into schools at the colleges and universities and some flight schools and recruited pilots to come, and we offered some funding to help them. But those were students that were already in aviation. They already knew about the opportunities. And we quickly realized if we were going to tackle this problem, we had to go even younger into our high schools and talk about opportunities when students are making those decisions. And so we last year launched our Ascend Pilot Academy, which is an opportunity for students to go right from high school into flight school and in with a job at Horizon Air and ultimately Alaska Airlines. And this is really important. As we look at workforce, we want to make sure we have a robust pipeline, but we also want to make sure that we are looking at representation for people of color, for females to get into aviation. Historically, that has been a very unrepresented area. And so we are taking the opportunity when we're going into high schools to be very strategic about where we're going, making sure we're offering those opportunities to students who wouldn't normally have it. And like Bob talked about at the beginning, mentorship is a huge component. Not if you're coming into the industry and you don't know how to get to become a pilot or become a maintenance technician, you don't even really know where to start. So having someone that's there alongside you to be a guide for you is equally as important as making sure that we have funding. So we currently have 3 programs for our pilot development, our Ascend Pilot Academy, and our True North, which is our partnership with HBCUs, or historically Black colleges and universities back on the East Coast. We launched our maintenance technician development program. We've been going into some schools even and talking with diesel mechanic classrooms, because not everyone has that aviation focus. And then we have partners in our high schools now. I know Raise Back is one of our partners that we are continuing to expand with this year. We're also going to Central Kitsap. We're partnered down in Hillsborough School District in Oregon. We're expanding into state of Alaska and state of California into those markets as well to really make sure that we're hitting all areas on the West Coast and beyond, so students have those opportunities. Our partnerships in the high school, when we've got there, they've said, you know what, we really need you in the middle school. You really need to plant these seeds even earlier. So we're doing some work in the middle schools, and then last year, they said, how about third grade? We created a third grade curriculum. And then finally, they went ultimate and were like, we really would love you in our kindergarten classroom. So I had really fun day creating kindergarten curriculum with teachers that know what they're doing. But I got to provide all the, the wooden toys and the costumes and all the things that kind of plant that seed early on, that you have this opportunity to be in mediation. So I'm just really grateful for all the work that everyone in this room is doing, every educator is doing, to really allow us to come in and talk to students and give us that opportunity to make an impact early on so students can come to Alaska Airlines and fly our planes and fly all of you to great destinations. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, I brought some flyers on all of our programs that are pipeline programs. We're continuing to expand, so if you have ideas or you'd like us to come and talk to students in your world, we'd love to do that.
Thank you so much, Asia, and a big thank you to Alaska Airlines for their support for this event and our chamber. And we cannot do these events without the support of our sponsors, and for that we are truly appreciative. And we would like to thank presenting sponsor Comcast. Thank you to presenting sponsor Highline College. And another thank you to presenting sponsor Home Street Bank in Bali. We would also like to thank investing sponsor Voices of Tomorrow.
Hello everyone, my name is Iftin Haji Mohammed. I am the co-founder and CFO of Voice of Tomorrow. Voice of Tomorrow was founded in 2012 by two teachers to address the disparities that existed in the education system. Voice of Tomorrow serves East African immigrants and refugee children. 85% of the population that we serve are from the Somali descendant. One of the goals that Voice of Tomorrow is working on or embarking on is creating an advocacy platform that embarks on workforce development. As part of being an educator in the education field, there's a set of requirements that teachers must meet and providers must meet. And this is to have a bachelor's degree or higher. Because the state mandated bachelor's degree, there's oftentimes folks that deal with two problems. One is time. I'm working consistently. I don't have the time to go back to school and I'm exhausted after I come off work. The next issue was funding. Tuition, because now there are business owners, they're not eligible for FAFSA. So what Voice of Tomorrow does is go back into the community and find those who have masters in education and connect them to Highline College or South Seattle College and local colleges so that they can be hired in order for them to serve these sets of students. Part of what Voice of Tomorrow does is provide culturally responsive and linguistically responsive education.
We'd also like to thank our supporting sponsor, GISA Credit Union.
GISA's financial education is at the heart of our community give back. Our outreach team does a fantastic job giving back to the communities. We support them, but we also come alongside and support through our high school credit union program, our new WSU campus branch program, our affinity debit card program, and our youth and adult education efforts. We've been running the high school credit union program since 2000. I joined the team in 2013, where we kind of revamped the program to provide some real-world work experience to the students working in our branch and providing strong financial education to the students utilizing the services of our branches. In 2013, we had 7 high school credit unions in just Tri-Cities, and now we have 12 high school credit unions across the state. October of 2021, our education team expanded to the introduction of our WSU Campus Branch program. Our WSU branches are more aligned with our traditional retail branches than the high school credit unions. The high school credit union programs really just do transactions and start the process of opening new accounts. Our WSU branches truly are a full-service branch, and I'm very proud to say that GISA has the only student-ran branch on the campus of WSU. Not only do we provide the students an opportunity to run their very own credit union, we empower them to show their school pride through our Affinity Debit Card program. Our Affinity Debit Card program is a very unique way for our membership to provide support to the school district of their choice. And it's not just for students. Parents, alumni, staff, and any general community supporter can add on the debit card of their choice and support that particular school district. With every swipe of their debit cards, we are taking a portion of the proceeds that we make and sending it back to that district by way of an annual donation. So ultimately, our members, at no cost to them, are running a continuous fundraiser for their normal daily living expenses. Since 2015, this program has grown through the years, and we started with 3 school districts, and now we have over 21 partners that are a part of the Affinity Debit Card program. It has expanded from school districts to our local heroes as well. The local heroes process is the same as the Affinity Debit Card, but rather than supporting school districts, it supports a local hero population. Our financial education offerings consist of in-person and virtual seminars and workshops and experiential learning programs. The main objective of the experiential learning programs is to immerse participants into a simulation-based, non-traditional learning experience. Our financial education program has reached a lot of milestones since the inception of our programs, reaching 10,000 individual participants across all of our education efforts. Even in spite of a pandemic, we were still able to make a positive impact through financial education. We quickly shifted from in-person workshops to virtual live webinars, still holding over 100 individual webinars and education sessions and reaching over 5,000 individual participants through virtual sessions. These virtual sessions will continue, and we're excited to launch both in-person and virtual education offerings for our membership. GISA's new brand really affirmed what we've been doing for years was the right thing we were doing, and to provide us that affirmation that let's continue to do that, but let's do it better. It's a fantastic team that is driven to make a positive impact, and that's what we do.
And a big thank you to supporting sponsor Port Jobs. We would also like to thank our assisting sponsors today, Crane Photography. Are you looking to stand out in the competitive professional world? With high-quality business photography from Crane Photography, you can create eye-catching and memorable first impressions with prospective employers and colleagues. And I know Andrew is here today making us all look great, so thank you, Andrew. We'd like to thank Multi-Service Center, a community action agency committed to its mission of helping people achieve greater independence and discover the power of their choices. Founded in 1971 by a concerned grassroots group of local citizens in Federal Way, now MSC is building a future without poverty by creating pathways to help, hope, and dignity for our neighbors. And Silao Credit Union, with the right tools and guidance, Silao Credit Union believes anyone can achieve their financial goals. Since 1948, Silao Credit Union has helped thousands of members manage their money. Taking care of members and giving them a stress-free banking experience is Silao's top priority. And finally, last but not least, we want to thank our media sponsor, South King Media. South King Media, Scott and Teresa Schaefer have been tireless advocates for the small business community and connecting small businesses and the community so we can stay informed. Scott is recording this event today so that those who are unable to attend live can watch it at a later date. And I think he's hiding behind that pillar over there. So thank you so much, Scott, for doing this, for keeping us all so connected. So with that, it is now my pleasure and honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Washington State Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education and Pathway Preparation, Becky Wallace.
So I want to thank you. Also, I want to apologize to those that are recording that I may make it a little more difficult because standing in one spot behind a podium is not my superhero power. And so I appreciate the flexibility for me today. I am joining you from the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction Office, our educational state agency. And I just want to share a little bit of background about our agency that you may know or you may not know. And I apologize, there's some of you that are behind poles. I see you, I'll keep moving. I want to first draw your attention to the vision of our agency because I think it resonates with the messaging that I've already heard this morning, right? And it's about having all students be prepared when they leave our system for post-secondary pathways. We don't specify those pathways for the student because there needs to be a lot of them. They all need to be accessible, they all need to be held up and valuable. Careers, because we often don't always think about in planning of our end in mind first and the ways that students can get there, and then civic engagement. And this is a great demonstration of where our students can go, right, and have continual civic engagement and meaningful experiences in their community. The other key piece I'll speak to on the mission is the transforming of the K-12 education, because while we understand that that's our vision for K-12 education, we also acknowledge that that is not the reality and that we are not in service to all students in the way we want to be. And I'm going to speak a little bit about that today as well. Our agency has an equity statement, and I know a lot of organizations have adopted equity statements, and I think what makes me most proud about ours is that it's a call to action. It is a call to action that it not only acknowledges that our system is not operating in the way that it should be today, but also tells us exactly what we need to do, which is great when you work for a state agency in government, to just know what we're supposed to be doing. And what we're supposed to be doing, what I have the honor of doing regularly, is looking across our policies and our practices and being really honest and direct about where there needs to be change. So part of our call to action as educational leaders is to look at the data. And I'm going to share some data today. Are you any data nerds? People that just love data in here? Do it more proud. I mean, proud. I love data. Math's not my thing. I like visuals. I like things that move and catch my eye. But I really like to talk about what's behind the data, how the data gets to where it is, what might be missing, what it might be hiding, and then what we actually do with it. Because I choose to work in educational policy. I'm proud of where I work. I'm proud of the agency that I work for. And part of the joy of my work is to be really honest about where we're not, where we need to be, what's behind the data, and then what are the actions to reinforce change. I do also want to share the strategic goals of our agency. This is actually not a commercial for OSPI, but we do have a lot of job openings, as everybody else does. So come join us if you're interested. The division that I serve is a secondary education pathway preparation division. And ironically, that is not the longest title in our agency. And so while we are fully focused on all 4 core strategic goals, we're really primarily focused on goal number 2, so learner-centered options in our communities. And then obviously number 3 as well, diverse, inclusive, and highly skilled workforce. And I will tell you that before this position, I was in service to career and technical education. And multiple times my calendar would be filled with different sectors that were just explaining, you know, we have a workforce pipeline issue. And I can basically tell you the same conversation every single time. There's a recognition that our workforce doesn't look like the communities we serve every single time, and education is the same. We know that our educator workforce does not reflect our student population, and so we're making large investments and to do the work systemically that's going to be necessary to shift and change that. Okay, our time together today, and I'm going to give Annie and Samantha full license to hook me because I can really get going, and I've been told I talk rather fast, so some of you in the room have experienced that. Okay, you guys are gonna keep me honest and also just acknowledge I'm doing better than I used to, right? Okay, the time together today can be moved as it's needed because we have a panel and I hear we're gonna have thousands of students or the energy of students, which is like the best cup filler possible. So I'm actually surprised I didn't know about this before. I would have crashed the party much earlier. But I was asked to kind of give some framing about what the educational system looks like in terms of potential workforce. We're going to frame that in looking at graduation and enrollment. I'm going to use some very key statistics terms that my good friends in our agency has given me, and then look at youth employment. Again, I recognize the irony that I would engage in conversation about what's needed for workforce. So we're going to do that conversation together, if that's okay. Does that work for you all? All right. I mean, if not, it's a very time. Let's take a little walk, ski, another round at the buffet table. Okay, so here's the long-term graduation rate, 4-year cohort, and so that's reflective of students that come in together and then complete their education system with their high school diploma within 4 years. You can see on that top line, and I'm sorry, you and I are gonna dance today. The top line is our cohort graduates, so 82.3% of the class of 2022 graduated within 4 years as they came in with their cohort. Okay, fantastic. So what that looks like is raw numbers, 85,240 students started together in 9th grade in 2018, 2019. Some things happened. You might remember around 2019, 2020, of that cohort, we had 70,000 students roughly graduate. When we look at long-term graduation rates, which is something we do look at as an indicator of success, you saw that dropout rate that was on the last graph. We have a continuing rate. And for the students that continue in the educational system and persist into a 5th, 6th, or 7th year of education, we pick up roughly, statistically generalizing, 5% of additional students that graduate with their high school diploma. So that's what you're seeing on this slide. When you look at the classes that we've had since 2017, our graduation rate has stayed technically fairly steady. We've had right around pre to the pandemic kind of a spike, and then we're evening a little bit out, but it's statistically within the same percentage points. What we do talk about as part of strategy of keeping students in and seeing relevance in their education so that they persist to high school diploma is seeing where they're going when they leave. And so there's a huge opportunity for workforce right there. In terms of enrollment, this is the part that made me giggle a little bit because I was told that more or less, which is a statistically approved term, more or less K-12 enrollment looks stable. Okay, and so what does that mean? It means like for the future of our workforce in our areas, we have a potential population that is fairly stable. That bottom line there, that is enrollment specifically in your high schools. And so those are your most immediate potential employees that you're seeing in that. Okay, and then where do they go when they leave us? We talk a lot about the success of an educational system. When we look at accountability measures, we're looking a lot about what a student does when they're with us. And we have a lot of work to do to bridge that outcome conversation, right? So it's great to say, student got a diploma, that was successful, on your way. We really should be more reflective and say, okay, where did they actually go? So when we look at where we know students have gone out of a graduating class, this is from the Educational Research and Data Center. So data nerds that raise your hands, if you haven't gone there, they have lots of live tableaus that you can play with, very fun. About 31% of our graduating students go to a 4-year university, 19% go to a community and technical college, 50% do not enroll. Okay, so immediately my questions are, we know apprenticeship is growing, where are apprenticeship numbers, what kind of students are we capturing there? What about direct to workforce, and how about military? We're a military state. We often don't talk about the military as a viable pathway, but they are, right? And so we lose that data there. And then how about persistence rates? So enrollment is one thing. When we talk about equity, we talk a lot about access. Okay, so if there's access, and then there's persistence and completion. In this case, we know that after the first year, 84% of those students that went on to a four-year university have actually persist and stay. The CTC system, 58% of that 19% persist and stay. So when we talk about the opportunity for where students can go, we can say, was there a gap in preparation? Was the student not fully prepared? And that can mean 100 different things, right? But we know that actually students that are employed, this is gonna blow your mind statistics again, guys, more than 0 hours, but less than 40 hours a week, they're more likely to finish their high school diploma, and they're more likely to persist in higher education as well. It's very easy to make the case for youth employment, and so hopefully that is something that resonates with you all. So hands up, if you currently employ youth, and we're going to say youth are age 16 to 19. If you currently employ youth, will you raise your hand? Okay, fantastic. How about if you are open to employing youth, but you don't currently employ youth? Okay, and then how about if you have ever known a youth, 16 to 19? Ever known a youth? Fantastic. Okay, I just want to acknowledge you all have a level of expertise in this conversation. And so 30% of our students are currently working. What that looks like in comparison to our enrollment. You may have heard Superintendent Reichtal, previous to legislative session, launched in a press conference his commitment to expanding employment opportunities for youth through the school system and acknowledging that they can be credit bearing, right? So he looked a lot at the statistics that have fed into, what does it mean for a student to be working? Well, we know that it helps their persistence. So the argument that it's bad for a student to be working is null. Right? We know that individuals can balance, or I worked all through high school, I got 0 credit for it. I'm still holding on to that a little bit. But when we look at our enrolled students and the potential students that could be working, that's that 11th and 12th grade enrollment line there at the top. When we look at employed youth, which are also going to be out of school youth, so 16 to 19, both in school and out of school youth, that's that second line. That third line is our employed students. So we know of our enrolled students in the K-12 system, just over 50,000-ish students are actually employed, paid employment, not internships, not family businesses that are on the books, things like that. And then at the bottom, you'll see our enrolled work-based learning and career launch students, right? So what I would suggest about those students is they are building, maybe not paid employment, but they're building the internships, they have the mentorship programs, they're engaged with career fairs, they're expanding their career awareness, so their potential to be good employees is also a statistic we should pay attention to. What you'll notice, probably not surprising, is that through the pandemic we had a dip in youth employability, mostly because jobs shut down, right? Okay. So making the case for youth employment, and probably not the case that I need to make in this room, but I will just let you know that we had a piece of legislation go through this year that was about giving credit to students for work, and a lot of people spoke against it. And it was a little odd to me, and so maybe I don't need to make the case, but if I do need to make the case, call me afterwards and we'll talk about why it's so important to have students get credit-bearing experience while they're in the K-12 system. Here's what we know. So we know the impact of student attendance is actually positive. It makes sense. As an individual who worked all through high school and also did lots of other things, my time management skills that prepared me when I left were well above my peers who had only gone to school, right? The impact of participation and engagement in school, again, if you can see where you're going, that gives you hope, and hope will keep you through things that maybe are not your bag, or do not bring you joy, or are difficult. And so we know that that is a positive thing for students. Social skills, communication, relational skills, and human capital. There's so many studies that talk about the role of human capital. You guys have 30 minutes of networking. That's intentional, right? It's intentional because human capital matters in the world of work, and it matters for our students to develop those skill sets early. Having those skill sets make them more employable. They're going to persist more in work and persist in higher education, which then ultimately should lead to related work. And then not surprisingly, early work experience does have impact on future wealth accumulation. So if a student starts their earning history earlier in their lifetime, they are more likely to earn more long term. Then we have to talk about benefit to the system as well. So youth employment and economic vitality are entirely tied together. So when we look at the recession, when the recession hit in 2008, 2009, you saw youth employment take a huge dip. Makes good sense because a lot of the entry-level work was taken with adults that were incumbent workers, displaced workers. And so we did not see the youth employment recover as quickly. And so what we've learned is the faster you can recover youth employment, the faster you can recover the overall economic vitality, right? So it's a good thing for our system to have more young people employed. Long-term labor supply and unemployment are tightly tied together. Again, we have all of these waves of retirement. There's a lot of communication already around it. I don't know very many sectors that are like, we got too many people. We have way too many trained, qualified people here, y'all. It just isn't happening. So we know that those things are tightly tied together, and obviously more individuals on unemployment is not good for the economy, right? We have to put the funding into the early training for individuals, both incumbent workers, both adult workers, and also young people to get them the skills that are necessary for our employers. And that's part of our K-12 opportunity. And then youth unemployment obviously impacts GDP growth. If individuals can be productive earlier in their careers, there's better productivity long term. Is there like a lot of no does in that? It's okay. I'll say valid. All right, we're having validity cosigned. Okay, we're gonna do another hands up because it's early in the morning. I surprisingly have not had my coffee yet. And so I'm gonna have you ask you just to raise your hands a bit. When you consider those of you that are employers or those of you that work closely with employers as community-based organizations or in schools, and you hear them speak to the primary barriers for recruitment and hiring of young people, they can give you lots of reasons. In some cases, we hear about policy requirements that there's age restrictions, right? That's a barrier. There's lots of different barriers. So when you consider in your expertise what the major barriers are to hiring young people, we hear often technical skill set. They don't have the technical skills to be ready for the job. We hear the soft skills, professional skills, leadership skills, employability skills. They're called lots of different things. You know what I'm talking about. Those things like they know how to show up on time, they're reliable, things like that. Or it might be a different primary barrier. So when you consider the primary barrier, if you think the primary barrier to hiring youth is actually technical skill attainment, can you raise your hand? We have one strong hand. Thank you. Thank you. All right, how about if it's professional employment skills, youth skills, a skill of being a youth, what is that? Nobody knows, but you raised your hand anyway, I appreciate it, thank you. All right, what about a different primary barrier? Okay, be brave. What's the primary barrier that you? Transportation. How about you? Legal issues. Legal issues. Okay, you are also co-signing legal issues. Other primary barriers, please. Language. Okay. Language. Insurance. Parenting. That's what my daughter would say. Her primary barrier is to all success. Yes. Disability. Okay. Accessibility then. Okay. Opportunity. Is it opportunity in that they don't know it's there? Okay. All right. Awesome. Daycare. Yeah. Childcare. Huge barrier. Mentorship. Okay. Having an adult mentor, we know for students is so critically important. The more adult mentors that a student can have, the better off they're going to be in persistence and access. Yeah. Mental health, for sure. I mean, these young people, my daughter's 13 and she's a common topic of my therapy because it's the one thing I'm really trying hard not to screw up, right, is to be your mom. And when we went through the pandemic together, when schools got shut down, I was in on a Saturday trying to figure out how we were going to build guidance around schools for this thing that we really, our contingency plans had not considered pandemic. Even if I could have told you what the pandemic was, that's not what I pictured. Okay, so I had a lot of conversations with my daughter about, like, just so you know, I have also never experienced anything like this. We're going to figure this out together. But for a sixth grader to shift to fully online, how many had kids that weathered the pandemic? Bless you. And those of you that were in the education system, like extra bless you. That was hard stuff. So that's not going to go away anytime soon, right? We have to think totally differently about the ways students and young people need to be trained in work, what they expect from the workforce, and how we can support them. Any other primary barriers? Please. Ageism, yeah, both ways that happens, right? Protected classes are on the backside of age, not so much on the inside. Yeah, our young people, I mean, the career fair is gonna take you there. Hopefully, when you speak to young folks, they have a different expectation about what work means for them. I have two nephews. One is just now, he has completed all of his schooling. He took a longer pathway. He's a radio tech. And the other is an apprenticeship for an electrician. He just passed his second, so I'm very proud. Neither of them, when we had conversations, had the same conversations that I had about, my conversations are, what do you really love to do? And if you can get paid for that, that's what you should go and do. What are you really good at? They're so much more pragmatic. They could tell you in high school what the wages were going to be, how much their cost for their schooling was going to be, and they were unwilling to not have a very immediate ROI. My one nephew expects to have a Tesla Cybertruck, and I was like, thank you, and also retire your favorite aunt, please, because she went into civil service. Please and thank you. Okay, if you have your phones, have you guys ever used Mentimeter? I did time as a classroom teacher, y'all, and also I spent time as a student outside of many classrooms to think about and reflect. And so what I would love for you to do is, if you can use the QR code, or you can go to menti.com, mentimeter.com, and put in that code. I'd like you to respond. Okay, here we go. Awesome. I just started playing volleyball again, and my body's like, no, you are not in shape. So, okay, respond to these two prompts. How can the K-12 education system be more responsive to business need? And how can K-12 and business better partner for mutual benefit? Just in all transparency, very selfishly, this is the kind of information that I need to take back to be able to get to our mission, which is to support the transformation of the educational system. We have the opportunity to talk to schools often. We have the opportunity to work with business leaders, and it's always important to me to lift up the voices that are actually doing that direct work. While I can think that there's great mentoring programs, I am very self-aware that we don't do a mentoring program with the state education agency, but we can support the policy and the funding investments to better scale those types of programs, as an example. So if you don't mind just taking a few moments, and I can check the Menti. I'm gonna keep on talking at you so that I don't get you guys behind on your schedule. We're still okay? Okay. And while you're doing that, I am going to ironically give you an answer to what Samantha suggested that I include in this presentation, which is, what can businesses be doing, right? What do they need to know? So what can you be doing? Hold on to your seats. To support youth employment, you can employ youth. That one took me a while. I really sat there and thought about it. First primary thing, employ youth. That's the greatest thing that you can do. But there's so many other things that you can do as well. Support credit-bearing paid work experiences. So our schools have the ability to give credit for out-of-school activities. They have to have policies that are adopted at their local level. And we really believe in the power of school boards and of their policies and respect those policies. But they vary. So you can have a school district that will give credit for a student for a paid work experience, and 5 miles down the road, you can have one that only gives competency-based credit if they've passed the state assessment. Right? So there's a lot of inequities there. So having those conversations when you engage in schools, the schools that you partner and work with, to understand what opportunities exist for students, and then having those conversations with the students that you employ. And then maybe just in general, speaking about the value of what that student is learning. Because we talk a lot about learning standards, credits are tied to learning standards, and I can say with absolute certainty that some of the most meaningful learning opportunities that I had were through work as a student. Expand high quality work-based learning. So if you have an opportunity to do a job shadow, to mentor students, to invite students in so that they can see your business, that awareness building will just further support potential youth employment and our youth in general. Evaluate employee requirements. I will just say we are trying to do the same thing. We know that there's inherent barriers to requirements in hiring. We know that there's bias in hiring. And so we have to look and be reflective about what is really the skills and knowledge and abilities that an individual needs to be able to do the job. What do they need to be able to do it to get hired? And then what kind of training can I provide? And in some cases, where we've done some reflection is that we had barriers and we weren't getting a pool of candidates that were really viable because we weren't doing a very good job matching up what our requirements were. So evaluate those requirements to be really specific to the job task. Adopt employment-based training and skills mapping. Again, if you know what they're able to do, we can build programs. The irony of me being here right now is that Christina is here, right? And the Boeing company has been doing this for years, but when it first started, there was a lot of barriers to like, how is this gonna work? How is the Boeing company going to develop a curriculum that we can adopt in high school settings? And how are we gonna figure out how they're gonna directly hire? And boy, did they figure it all out. And they figured out the way that they could take the training and that we could K-12 education it, right, to make it appropriate, from a pedagogy standpoint, from a learning standards standpoint. And they've been able to directly hire students out of our system in all across the state. And they're not the only company that's doing that. It does take a little bit of work. You have to be able to be clear about what you want. Washington State Patrol has approached us. Happy to help understand how we can expand opportunities in Washington State Patrol. Give us the curriculum that you say only 19-year-olds can do. And then let us figure it out. Let's figure that out. Support the creation of that high school coursework, and then create or endorse credentials of value. How many of you have a business-specific credential that you're looking for that might be a non-degree requirement, a non-degree credential or certificate? Okay, well, I know Boeing does. Okay, so they created it. It's based on the curriculum that they also supported the creation of Core Plus. Okay, so the Core Plus certificate, if a student has this, multiple employers, the supplier pipeline also say, we want to interview you because we understand some of the skills and competencies you bring. There's nothing that stops multiple employers coming together to develop a credential that they say, we're at the very least going to interview you because it's going to mean something. That's an opportunity. And then serve on advisory boards. I just want to lift up the good work of Highland that you heard earlier today. It's a requirement for our K-12 and our community and technical colleges that have professional technical programs, workforce development programs, to have advisory committees. How many of you serve on an advisory committee? I hope we get good snacks, at the very least. I really do appreciate that because we want our education systems to be reflective and to meet the need of employers. And so that is an opportunity. And then partner with career and technical student organizations. Raise your hand if you know what career, so much hand raising today, right? Thank you. There are 8 state adopted career and technical student organizations, and they really give students the practical opportunity to not only build and demonstrate those technical skills that one person is trying to hire for and cannot, but also the leadership skills. So the next slide is a little bit of a video. How am I on time now? Second. Cut it. Play it? Okay. This is a video that is from Skills USA. That is one of our CTSOs. I just want to share a little bit from that.
Listen, if you're a sponsor and you want to consider working with Skills USA, you need to understand that this is a long-term ROI. We're convincing students to consider the trade, so we're providing for you the opportunity for your future consumers as well as your future employees.
American business depends on the availability of a skilled workforce. This is documented all over the world, and it's in your direct interest to invest in upskilling the American workforce, which is what Skills USA does, and that helps you directly.
You get a definitive talent pipeline. You get job-ready, day-one employees. For us to get the 3M brand out in front of the student population is really important. It's a great opportunity to make that connection while they're learning their trade and before they go out into the workforce.
You have the opportunity to develop a long-term user of your product, and that's great. Any organization would find the value in that.
If industry doesn't do it, who will? It has to be private industry. And the most logical people to do it are the industries who require skilled labor on the front line.
The value that a company can get by partnering with Skills USA is immense. There's no other place you can go and see students from all across the country in so many different fields that are technically proficient at this stage of their careers. They're ready to work, they're well trained, they have great leadership and communication skills. Any company would want to hire these students.
It has taught me the importance of personal, workplace, and technical skills.
I learned how to start conversations, how to build my character, how to strengthen my overall well-being.
It taught me self-motivation, taught me discipline, taught me that if I want to get something done, I have to work for it. It's not going to be handed to you, it's going to be earned.
To the industries that have supported us, I am so thankful. It's an investment, making almost a down payment on these future employees.
If you consider your company innovative, this is where you need to be, because the companies that have participated, that do support this organization, they know that this is where their future is.
That's from the National Skills USA competition. Last week I had the opportunity at Clover Park Technical College, and they hosted the state Skills USA state competition. There were 89 contests being held on one campus across 9 different career clusters. I know Boeing hired some students out of electrician, Ford was there, United Rentals did some direct hiring. And the diversity and the amount of competition that you can see, the technical skills that were being illustrated, and they don't have a technical contest that doesn't also layer in professional skills. So if they're going in and there's a drone technology and they have a requirement in this field to program and operate a drone to do a specific task, they also have to explain what they're doing, right? They're folding in those communication skills that are so necessary in all work. So I would really encourage you, if you haven't had an opportunity to engage with one of your career and technical student organizations that exist at our high schools and skill centers, please do that. My time was fast. You also have to hear me on the panel, so I'm going to try to not talk so much there because there's so many great folks that are going to join me there. But I did want to just offer that as an ongoing opportunity. If you have feedback, I'm always open to receive it. I look forward to looking at the mentee. I don't want to go through all of the feedback as part of this right now because I know we're tight on time. But I do really appreciate your engagement. I appreciate the work that you're doing and your commitment to coming together and even being open to employing youth. And I just want to reiterate the openness that we have to understand what shifts are needed to transform the educational system to better serve outcomes for students that you'll be hiring. So thank you very much. If there's questions, if not, we can move right through. Okay, we're gonna move. All right.
Thank you, Becky, for taking the time to be here today to share with us insight into the future of education and workforce development and how Washington is taking the lead on innovative approaches to supporting our workforce needs. Give it up for Becky. One more time. Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Lay, and if you've met me before, you may know me as the Executive Vice President for the Seattle Southside Chamber of Commerce. Today, I am so grateful to share with you that I now have the honor of serving as the Executive Director for the Success Foundation. Before I highlight some of the amazing work the Success Foundation and Chamber is doing to support our workforce needs, I want to recognize the Success Foundation board members that are here with us today. Madam Chair, Jennifer Hansen. And Directors Rafael Sacedo, Amy O'Donnell, and Annie McGrath. Success means a lot of different things to different people, but for the Chamber, it means that everyone in our region is invited to create and define their own success stories. Our community should be recognized as the place where businesses, residents, and community partners are able to live out their best lives. With poverty rates in our community exceeding the state average, we know that we have our work cut out for us on raising the tide for all in our region. As the Chamber's 501c3 nonprofit or charitable enterprise, the Success Foundation promotes and improves the economic development opportunities for the Seattle Southside and its communities through education, workforce, and community development by providing programs for specialized training, internships, apprenticeships, employment navigation, and work-related wraparound services. That's a tongue twister. We can't do this work alone, and which is why we're so thankful for your support through our Education and Workforce Committee, partnering with us for our Education and Workforce Summit today, and our Summer Youth Program that offers local students professional development and career exploration opportunities where we focus on low barrier and high earning careers with local partners in the Southside. Some of those partners are here with us today. To ensure that all students achieve upward economic mobility, known as the Workforce Discovery Lab. On behalf of our board, we thank you for being here today to engage with our students, to enrich our communities, and to enhance our region, because together we are stronger. Speaking of partners, we have an exciting panel discussion ahead. So everyone, please join me in giving a warm welcome to our panel facilitator, Senior Director of External Government Affairs at Comcast, Terry Davis.
Hey, if we want to build the future, we're gonna need some things.
Like a high-speed internet connection that can turn my ideas into reality.
Like the skills to become the world's most powerful coder.
The resources to make more films with people who look like me.
Like me.
Like me.
Like me. Like me. Like me. Like me.
Like the tools to start my sustainable shoe business.
Way more space to collaborate.
Yeah, that's better.
Through Project Up, Comcast is committing $1 billion to open doors for the next generation so they can build a future of unlimited possibilities.
I just want to kind of mention the Project Up. That's our $1 billion commitment that's building on our legacy of bridging the digital divide. We started over a dozen years ago trying to make sure that our low-income members of our community have internet at home. And obviously the pandemic took that to a whole nother level of importance. And so we continue to double down on our commitments for making sure that people are connected to what matters most in their lives every single day. Beyond my role at Comcast, I also am board chair for the South Sound Chambers of Commerce Legislative Coalition, in which Seattle Southside Chamber is a member, as well as Kent and other South Sound chambers. workforce development and education is a key cornerstone of our legislative agenda. So it is really great that I can be here today and lead our panel. So I do want to get to the panel, because the last thing you want to do is hear a facilitator go on and on.
Actually, much of what is happening today are things that I hope are also happening down in the Southside area, because I think a lot of what happens here, some of which I know some of the colleagues in the room are fantastic. So as far as Tukwila goes, we're a smaller school district in the area. We're only about 2,600 students, 1 high school, 1 middle school, and 3 elementaries. However, within that school district, it is an extremely diverse population, which represent a lot of opportunities for our students to go on and then be represented in many fields that are underrepresented by multi-language learners and students of color. So the Tukwila population is only 10% Caucasian, and over 80 languages spoken within those 2,600 students. So it's a lot of opportunity. What's happening in Tukwila, just to highlight, we do a lot of apprenticeship and internship. We try and do the best we can, partnering with the city and other partners in the area. We also bring in opportunities for people to connect with our students, both at the high school, Foster High School, so they have folks that are coming in on a regular basis. You heard a little bit about some opportunities. We do have military who come in and set up tables, which can present some good opportunities that they might not otherwise see. And at the middle school, for the last 2 years, they've actually been having career and education fairs twice a year. And those have been really good opportunities to get middle school students interested and aware of possibilities for programs and employment and internship opportunities when they come of age. So those are just a couple of the areas that Tukwila has been looking.
So if you know anything about Raisbeck Aviation High School, we're actually just a small school. We have just 400 students, but we are doing some really big things. We, in the past, we're an aviation and aerospace focused school. And so we tell students, well, here's some choices you have. And sometimes those weren't always the choices the students had thought of, or they didn't know what they didn't know yet. So this past year, we decided, rather than saying, here's some choices that you have, we wanted to see from students, what are you interested in? We wanted to create no barriers for what they were passionate about, what they might want to do. So we started programming this year on Fridays. It was a ton of work because we had to get through all of those hurdles. I really just want to copy what Becky said about creating the opportunities for students, because the 2 words we use all the time are opportunities and partnerships. So we created programming, and thank goodness the governor recognized the work students do can count for credits outside of school, because we used our work-based learning, our CTE programming, our TSA students who we have back here, and created an opportunity for students to go out of school during the school day on Fridays and pursue internships. On-site job opportunities that included apprenticeships. We had students following their dream of flying. And I'm telling you, it was absolutely powerful and life-changing for many of our students who we hope we will continue going forward and doing that. And just have to give a shout out, because part of that was internships right at the chamber that Samantha helped coordinate for our students. So yeah, we're trying in just a little step, making a tiny difference with our students, but those are the type of things we hope in public education can start being replicated for students, because there really should be no limits.
So Nady, I'm going to come back to you really, really quick. I'm going to bring the apprenticeship question back to Becky, and then I'm going to come back to you for a specific question as a student. Okay? So best practices, apprenticeships, what should we be focused on?
Yeah, never cut a student in speaking line is my personal policy. So, because all the genius is going to come out of that into the table, with all respect. So, Washington State is a heavily proud registered apprenticeship state. And so there has been a lot of federal investment dollars, there's been a lot of state invested dollars in expanding apprenticeship. The Washington Student Achievement Council, WASAC, is administering over $25 million in the expansion of career-connected opportunities, but with a heavy focus on registered apprenticeships. So in terms of what can we do, you can be an employee sponsor of a registered apprenticeship. You can work with intermediaries. What we look at in the K-12 system is the opportunity to have an apprenticeship preparation program. And so the Washington State Apprenticeship Training Council, they do the formal recognition of any apprenticeship preparation program that exists. We have some CTE programs that are called pre-apprenticeship for the trades. They're specific to the trades. But any program that can meet requirements can be part of an apprenticeship preparation program, and they have an aligned registered apprenticeship. So when we talk about seamless transitions for students and individuals, that's really important. So that's an opportunity. The state also passed in the budget $4 million for an apprenticeship pilot, a preparation pilot, and so we'll look to establish another site in Eastern Washington that provides an apprenticeship, and they also funded $2 million to Marysville apprenticeship program. And the Marysville program, the statute calls out specifically that the high school program has to be in alignment and working with the college program. Students have to earn college credit. They also have to have a union hall as a sponsor as part of that. And so students that are exiting those programs specifically can choose if they're going to go on to continuing education to finish a degree, if that's the best path for them. They're going to go right into the workforce with their journey card. So those are some things that are going on.
Okay, perfect. All right, Amy, now coming back to you. You are in the system. You are a student who has probably lived through the pandemic and post-pandemic. So in what ways do you feel the education system has, how they can grow to help students become more successful as they move towards the workforce?
I feel, hi, I'm Nady Avila Ramirez, senior at Razorback Aviation High School, vice president of the Black Student Union, and public speaker, apparently. I think that schools just really need to support their students, really let them know that they're there for them. More workshops, more field trips, just exposure more for the students and letting them know that the workforce is an option if they choose to take it. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, now I also hear that you're a graduate of the Workforce Discovery Lab. Is that true?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that experience and give our audience that firsthand take of how it prepared you for your professional career?
I loved it. Best week of my summer. We had awesome food, Chick-fil-A.
So number one key is good food there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. It was very intriguing, very interesting, learning about different jobs in our communities. I learned how to buy a house. We met a real estate agent. We got workshops on how to dress professionally, how to build a resume, how to create a LinkedIn, really just learning small steps that are really useful in the workforce. And I think we all enjoyed it very much.
How have you seen Washington schools change overall, and where do you see them changing in the present and the future? How are we going to be even more prepared?
And I apologize. Oh, yeah, now I can hear myself. This one I couldn't hear, so for folks online, I apologize for that. In terms of how do I see schools kind of change overall, I just want to be kind of pretty much basic and to the point. Institutions, schools, K-12, community colleges, 4 years, have to listen to each other. We have to recognize the need and stop having this hierarchy within education. We have to listen and figure out what our students need. Our students tell us. Our students tell us every day what they want and what they don't want, how they learn, how they want to be talked to, how they, all those things. But how much do we really listen to our students? Because that means that we have to actually change our method of teaching, our education, which also means we have to acknowledge a very oppressive system for many of our students in a very privileged system for some of our students, right? And in a community like this, where we have so many students of color, and Highline College has close to 80% students of color, the most diverse college in the state of Washington. They have the first Black president, first president of color in 60 years, right? This is the reality of our institutions. These are the realities of our schools, but we have to listen to them. I think if we start listening and actually going beyond that and actually acting on that and ask the questions, we're gonna get the answers and then actually act on them. I think we can get some work done. But we gotta stop being in our feelings, and we gotta put our egos at the door. So I think that's at least a start. Thank you.
Because I think when you included students in a lot of the conversations and discussions, you are hearing from the people who are ultimately impacted. Education, especially K-12, can be a challenging place to make changes because everybody's been through that system. And so they remember their experiences, good or bad. And if there were good experiences, they kind of want to keep those good experiences the way they had them. And if they weren't so great, then they're looking to make those changes. But either way, I have 3 children of my own, all grown. My youngest is a senior this year. But their experience in this world is very different than the experience I had. Even though that was, maybe closer than other people, it's still what they're experiencing now. And when you're not in that, we all have our own perspectives. But getting that student voice is an extremely important part, and our school systems are changing in their demographics. If you look at that throughout the state of Washington, throughout each individual school districts, you will see some of those changes. And when those changes come, they can be really challenging to go through because many people do not want to change. They don't like the change that comes their way. But the best way to help bring that change is really to empower student voice to help out with that. So I would agree a lot with what Dr. Mosby says, just listening to the students who are ultimately impacted.
And I'll echo both of them and thinking of 3 big areas. One, of course, is the barriers and removing those barriers. Some of them are systemic barriers rooted in over 100 years of public education that we have to remove and do better. And I've seen, just from the school level, but also being involved, I'm involved with 2 national organizations for STEM education, and barriers are being removed. People are really moving forward and making a huge difference. The second piece of that, though, is barriers such as funding, barriers that may be built into state level education systems, and we can start chipping away at those. I referenced just a few minutes ago that Governor Inslee now has made it where students can receive credit for those work outside of school. Again, that's life-changing for a lot of our students, and it removes a barrier right there. So it's the removing barriers, both from a financial and legal versus, and in addition to a systemic racism barriers. The second, again, is creating those opportunities and partnerships. I go back to my 2 favorite words. And it's hard because we get into our daily routines, and it's hard from the school level to create that time to start doing outreach to businesses. But if a business picks up the phone and says, hey, we're looking for summer interns, we're looking for interns during the school year, job shadow, field trip opportunities. Just in this room, Southside Chamber of Commerce, the Rotary, Boeing was back on site yesterday doing some interviews for experiences, and it was like, oh my gosh, the electricity going through the school yesterday because Boeing was on site interviewing was just, you just can't measure that. Alaska Airlines is working with Deja has been an amazing experience. Embry-Riddle is here, one of our college partners. And if you create, again, as a small school, you start replicating that and having that and creating those opportunities for students, because third point is it goes back to students' voices. What are they interested in? What are they passionate about? Where do they see themselves? If you create the conditions where students can envision their future, there's half the battle right there, is overcoming that and then creating the opportunity for them to start pursuing that vision.
I think we had federal investments of ESSER dollars specifically to support schools in their recovery efforts, fully focused on learning recovery and helping students be supported. And a lot of schools were able to hire staff, mental health counselors. We're able to hire staff that could do wraparound services for students that are not traditionally funded in a way that allows school districts to employ those highly technical, highly needed professionals in schools. If you listen to the news, ESSER funding is going to scale, it's going to go away, and there are a lot of school districts that are really having to make really tough budget decisions. It is hard, it's not easy, and so I don't have a one or two related to, how are we going to recover from the pandemic. I think the scary part for me right now is that we saw some really incredible recognition in school systems that the way we were serving students was not serving students. And we had a lot of shifts. We shift grading practices. We shift the way that students were able to access their learning. We shift what we talked about in the content, right? The content was important, but we also figured out we had to take care of the kid. And that's not diminishing what the school systems looked like pre-pandemic. It just, our priorities changed and we got more flexible. What we're seeing is that we're shifting back to what was normal pre-pandemic, right? Because it's what's known. There's not a lot of resource to be able to do the really incredible things that school systems are able to do. And so that is a challenge. We've always been able to give students credit for work, okay? So the unfortunate part in the recent passing of the bill is that now we're capping it at 2 credits because we were so concerned about protecting elective credits that instead it was like, well, they can only get 2 credits. So if I'm at a school district right now and I have a working student, I can give them academic and non-academic elective credit if they're in a worksite learning program. I can give them 2 credits now through this elective credit policy. And if I have a competency credit policy, I can give however many credits that my policy allows for. What that looks like is that there's still inequities. So there's good intention in policy, and then there's an implementation. And oftentimes, and this again is not a dig at schools, we find flexible credit policy for students that are in deficit. We do not use it to accelerate. That is in essence not making a transformation of the school system that is serving the student. If a student can leave the K-12 system at the end of their 10th grade year and fully become a Running Start student, we say, yeah, that makes sense. That student's ready to go. We don't do the same if the student could go into registered apprenticeship or to work. We're like, well, they're probably not quite ready yet, right? And so we have to look at ourselves, and I really appreciate Dr. Mosby's conversation about we have to drop our egos at the door. When it comes down to it, there's funding, right? Resource is incredibly important. So for every student that says, I'm ready to go to higher ed right now, that's a loss of FTE for a school district. That's lost funding for a school district, right? And so if we're trying to incent the system to say the students should be able to access their learning wherever and whenever, then our students that work and access online should not be funded differently than the student that's in a brick and mortar classroom, right? And they are. So when we explore those policies, like if we're really talking about transformation and change, we have to get more open about what's the value of the educational experience, how can students learn, and then how do we wrap around services to both the students and the school systems, educational systems, so that our citizens of Washington State have an experience where they can just go where they need to get the services that they need, right? The Superintendent Rickdahl would graduate kids at 10th grade if they were ready. No problem. He's very open to flexible ways of knowing. That's terrifying for a system to go, they'll be done at 16. Are they really ready? Are we sure that they're ready? Well, we don't give them the chance, right? We don't really shift the policies enough. So if we can look at the well-intended state level policies that get adopted in a well-intended way locally, but try to make sure that they're accessible for all students, each and every student from the front end, and that parents and families know those opportunities, that's when we'll be serving, and that's when we'll be transformational and really working together. Because then it doesn't matter if the funding is going to Highline or it's going to Highline School District. The student is being served where they need to be. And we're closer to that. The state made investments in college and high school funding, so students will not be charged. The institutions will be provided funding. We see investments in Running Start. We see a lot of higher ed related investments to be able to have that alignment that's necessary. We just know there's still more to do. So I did not answer your question.
No, you did.
Did not. There's at least 2 or 3 points in there, I'm sure.
You phrased it in terms of the challenges ahead.
Okay, thank you.
I think that is even more important because we have to evolve and we have to continue growing. And I want to come to Nadine. We got to wrap this up because we're against our schedule. But you are the byproduct of everybody on this stage, and I want to showcase you because I met your mother before, and I know that she is super proud of you. Tell us where you are going, what you will become, because it's not a hope, it is a goal, and you will get there. So share that with everybody.
So I will be attending the University of Arizona. I will be studying astronomy, and I love it because Arizona has the 3rd best astronomy program in the country. From there, I hope to get an internship with NASA or any other space company. But those are my plans right now, taking it step by step. Oh, I'm also a student speaker at graduation.
And she's a scholar athlete as well, 2 sports at Evergreen High School, part of the Highline. And can I give a shout out to, I forgot one other partner, my friends from the Museum of Flight who support us.
Congratulations. And you are going to be discovering new worlds so that our friends and manufacturers that in the Kent Valley can create new planes and new spacecraft to get there. So thank you again for all being here today, contributing to support our work and our community. I do want to invite Josh Gertzman to the stage so that he can round out the program. It is my honor to welcome him to close us out. He is the Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Highline.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. I'm reminded that earlier this year, I think that was still 2023, you were welcoming a lot of us to the Southside Legislative Chamber Coalition breakfast over in SeaTac at 4 Points. And that was a great morning. We had a chance to come together as a community, to convene with our legislators, to share, our concerns and our needs. And then over the past several months, that legislator came together and they worked and they did a lot of great work. So we appreciate your work. We appreciate the work of our legislators out there on behalf of the community technical college system. We're actually very excited that they have fully funded the COLAs for across the state for all of our employees, our faculty and staff, because that was a key thing, because to be able to educate the young people and all people of all ages that come to our system, we want to recognize the great workers that are happening on our staff. So I just want to take a moment to say thanks there. When I was asked to speak on behalf of Highline College, I did not think that my very important gentleman to my right, my boss, would be standing here. So hopefully the next 30 seconds or so go well. But last spring, Highline College celebrated our 60th anniversary. I'm wearing our 60th anniversary socks to prove that. And what you might not know about Highline Community College, when it was formed in the early 60s, the community had to come together. They had to have vision. They had to actually go to the legislature to change the rules, because at the time you could only have one publicly funded higher education institution in a county. And we had the University of Washington. A few of you may be fans of the Huskies. No worries. But we wanted to, at the time they wanted to see that more people needed access to higher education. And it was innovative in the thinking and bringing that college and many of the other colleges that have come online since. And it was innovative at the time. It was almost revolutionary, this vision of community colleges that would be responsive to our business community to help provide the future workforce and providing access to education. However, over those 60 years, some of our practices went from revolutionary to almost, I would say that we became barriers and structure that caused interference with an individual and a young person's attempt to get their education. So at Highline College, we've taken a deep dive. It's not enough for us to talk about that we serve the most diverse student body in the state. We have to have practices that reflect how to support that diversity. We have to have faculty and staff that both reflect who our students are, but are also willing to partner with them to help them achieve their goals. And so that's what we've been doing. And one of those flips, those switches that we want to flip is, for years we've said, are students college ready? But we want to ask, is the college student ready? And as we partner with you, both our education partners and our workforce partners, we want to be able to go to the employers out there and say, Highline College wants to listen to you, and we did that recently with our roundtable. Bob, I really appreciate you mentioning that this morning. We're going to continue to be in the community, working with you and listening and understanding what your needs are. But we want you to use us, because we want the young people that we work with, and again, I said young people, they're young at heart. They may be 16, they may be 64. They're all ages, all races, all ethnicities. They speak 120 languages. They come with amazing values, amazing credentials. But we want you as employers to be employee ready. We want you to understand that it wasn't just the pandemic that's changed our population, that the face of King County and South King County has changed. These are great people with great strengths. We want them to be working for you, but when you employ them, we want them to come in and feel supported and welcome and understand that they've come into an environment that equals the educational environment that they've been in. So that partnership works both ways. So I wear two hats. I'm the Vice President of Institutional Advancement. I'm also the Executive Director of the Highland College Foundation. The foundation realizes that in academia, the letter C doesn't always represent excellence. But I want to give you 5 C's that do represent excellence. And if you can relate to these 5 C's, then we want to work with you. So first of all, community. This is our community. When we come together, we can figure things out. It's one thing to be community, but how do we connect? Who do we connect with? Do we know the people in the room to connect with? That connection turns to convening. When we come together in a morning like this, when we come together at a round table, we're convening. We are figuring things out, we're problem solving, we're setting goals, we're gonna do it. Then we're gonna contribute. Each of us can contribute something to make this happen. Through the foundation, some people are contributing scholarship dollars or emergency fund dollars or supporting special projects, but we as a college are contributing a lot back to the community as well. We're contributing that knowledge, the listening to those students to understand what their needs are. We want to share that with you. And then, because it's morning, that 5th C or 6th C, possibly at this point, is coffee. Yeah, I've heard it now every time. When we gather, we better have good drinks and good food, and we are going to count on you as a community to help provide that, because I'll just leave you on this note. Over the next month, Highland College will be a center of convening for a lot of young people in our community. We're hosting the Native Success Summit on May 11th. We host the annual Yale Summit for Young Educated Ladies Leading on May 13th. In the fall, we do the Black and Brown Male Summit for young men to come and be able to identify and control their narrative. They get to say who they are, and they get to talk about their hopes and dreams. And we want you to be part of those hopes and dreams that they have. So if you want to be part of this vibrant community, this convening of activity, just talk to Dr. Mosby, talk to myself, talk to our friends out there, because Highland College is your community college, and we're happy to be here this morning. So thanks, Terry.
All right, thank you, Josh, and thank you so much again to our panelists today, to our keynote, Becky Wallace, and to all of you here in this room for caring deeply about the issues that are impacting our businesses, our youth, and our area employers, and for taking the time to be with here this morning. I hope you enjoy the showcase career fair that's happening downstairs. I know there's going to be a lot of energy in this building very soon, so do get that coffee and head on down. And thanks again for being here today.